In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where titans clash and empires span star systems, where massive fleets decide the fate of civilizations, where the greatest hunters can swallow starships whole, sometimes the deadliest predator fits in the palm of your hand. This is the story of a moment when the universe's most feared apex species discovered they weren't alone at the top of the food chain. When the hunters became the hunted, when size meant nothing and survival meant everything. The observation chamber at Illworth Research Station trembled, not from stellar winds or gravitational anomalies. The tremor came from something much smaller, much closer, and infinitely more dangerous. Aldous pressed her palm against the reinforced viewing port, watching the containment field flicker. Inside the habitat, 8 creatures the size of hamsters moved with precision that made her skin crawl. They weren't scurrying like prey animals should. They were hunting. The emergency beacon pulsed red against her wrist. 3 hours until the station evacuation transport arrived. 3 hours to secure the specimens and complete the research that had taken 2 years to gather. 3 hours to prove that humanity's first deep space biological survey hadn't been a colossal waste of resources. She should have known something was wrong when the collection team reported finding the creatures in the wreckage of a Class 7 destroyer. Nothing that small should have survived a battle that tore apart ships built to withstand stellar bombardment. Nothing that small should have been aboard a military vessel in the first place. The containment field sparked. Aldous reached for the backup power controls, then froze. One of the creatures was looking directly at him through layers of energy barriers and armored glass. Its eyes held intelligence. Not the instinctual cunning of a clever animal, but the calculating awareness of a sentient being studying a potential threat. It tilted its head, and Aldous felt her blood turn to ice water. The thing was evaluating her. The creature chirped, a sound like crystalline wind chimes. The other 7 stopped their methodical exploration of the habitat and turned toward the viewing port. 8 pairs of luminous eyes fixed on Aldous with predatory focus. She stepped back from the window. Her hand moved instinctively toward the emergency lockdown controls. 2 years of research, career-defining specimens, but those eyes. The containment field died. Not flickered, not sparked, died. As if something had systematically dismantled its power coupling from the inside. Aldous lunged for the alarm panel, but before her fingers could reach the activation switch, a voice stopped her cold. Wait, the word formed in her mind with crystalline clarity. Not heard through her ears, but placed directly into her consciousness with surgical precision. She spun toward the viewing port. The habitat stood empty, its transparent walls intact, its security seals unbroken. Impossible. Something warm touched her ankle. Aldous looked down and saw perfection engineered for killing. The creature at her feet stood no taller than her thumb, but every line of its form spoke of apex evolution. Iridescent fur that shifted color like liquid mercury covered a frame built for speed and strength in proportions that defied physics. Retractable claws capable of cutting through molecular bonds extended from paws designed for climbing any surface. A tail that moved with independent intelligence, tipped with what looked like a microscopic stinger. But it was the eyes that held her motionless. Ancient eyes. Eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. Eyes that belonged to something that had never known fear because nothing in its universe had ever been capable of threatening it. I am Kakwin of the Glazok. The telepathic voice carried undertones of surprise, as if the creature hadn't expected to encounter anything worth speaking to. You are not prey. Aldous's throat felt like sandstone. She managed to croak out a response. I'm human. Kakwin circled her feet with fluid grace, studying her from every angle. Her movements held the casual confidence of a being that had never encountered anything it couldn't kill. Human, she repeated, tasting the word in her mind. From the third planet of the yellow star, we have heard stories. Stories. She paused in her circuit, fixing him with that unnerving stare. That your species produces warriors, that you hunt the hunters, that you come from a world so violent it should not support intelligent life. Aldous felt a flush of pride despite her terror. Earth was a death world by galactic standards. Humans were considered barely controlled berserkers by most civilized species. But this tiny being spoke of her people as if they were something. Interesting. "Show me," Caquin commanded. "Show you what? Why my people should not hunt yours." The temperature in the observation chamber seemed to drop 10 degrees. Aldous became acutely aware of 7 other sets of eyes watching her from strategic positions around the room. She hadn't seen them move, hadn't heard them arrive. They had simply appeared, like shadows gaining substance. They were pack hunters, perfect pack hunters, and they were deciding whether humanity deserved to exist. "Your research team captured us while we slept," Caquin continued. "They assumed we were simple creatures. They placed us in a habitat designed for harmless specimens. They did not realize that we allowed ourselves to be taken because we were curious about the species bold enough to explore our territory." Aldous's mind raced. The wreckage the collection team had found, the destroyed Class 7 destroyer, 8 creatures the size of hamsters. "You destroyed that ship. It was not cooperation," Caquin confirmed matter-of-factly. "The crew tried to claim our hunting grounds. They fired upon our home. They learned that size means nothing when facing perfect predators. How? We are Glazok. We are the apex species of our world and 12 others. We have ended civilizations that thought themselves our superiors. We hunt in perfect coordination. We think as one when necessary. We never miss our target. We never leave survivors." She paused. Until now, Aldous understood. They were giving her a chance. One chance to prove that humanity was worthy of coexistence rather than extinction. But what could she show them? Her hands weren't armed. She had no weapons. No technology that could possibly threaten beings capable of dismantling starships. Nothing except what made humans human. Aldous moved slowly, carefully, toward the emergency supply locker. The Glazok tracked her movement but didn't interfere. She palmed the lock and withdrew a standard-issue survival kit. Food concentrates, water purification tablets, medical supplies, and a length of synthetic rope. Caquin watched with growing curiosity as she fashioned a simple snare. Not the high-tech variety used for capturing galactic fauna. The kind human ancestors had made with plant fibers and patience. The kind that had helped a species of persistence hunters climb to the top of their planet's food chain. "Persistence," she said, setting the snare near the air circulation intake, where the environment system would create a subtle breeze. "That's what makes humans dangerous. We don't give up, ever." The snare was crude by galactic standards. Any civilized being would have dismissed it as primitive, but Caquin's eyes reflected something Aldous hadn't expected to see. "Respect. You would use such simple tools against us?" she asked. "If I had to," Aldous replied honestly. "But I'd rather not have to." "Why?" "Because predators shouldn't waste time fighting other predators when there's a whole galaxy full of real threats out there." Caquin's laugh was like silver bells ringing in a crystal cavern. "You think we are similar, your kind and mine. Aren't we?" She considered this, her tail swishing in what Aldous was beginning to recognize as a sign of deep thought. "The Zephyrians thought themselves our equals," she said eventually. "They commanded fleets of 10,000 vessels. We ended their empire in 7 days. The hegemony of Tylos controlled 47 systems. They lasted 3 days against us." "The Altarian Republic, all larger than you," Aldous interrupted. All convinced that size meant power, Caquin's head tilted in what might have been acknowledgement. "And all," Aldous continued, "probably convinced they were the apex predators of their corner of space." just like humans used to think we were the only intelligent life in the galaxy. You no longer believe this. Aldous gestured around the station. We're out here looking for new life, new civilizations, new things to learn from. That's what apex predators do when they're confident in their abilities. They explore, they adapt, they find new challenges. She moved closer, studying her face with intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. And if those new challenges prove greater than expected, then we learn to be greater than we were before. The silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of species evaluating species. Around the chamber, the other Glazok maintained their positions, patient as stones, deadly as neutron stars. Finally, Caquin spoke. We have never encountered a species that admits its limitations while simultaneously refusing to accept them as permanent. Is that good or bad? It is. Interesting. Another pause. Then something that might have been a smile crossed her features. Your people may live, Aldous of the humans. But understand this, we will be watching. If your species proves to be a threat to the galaxy's true apex predators, you'll end us in 7 days, Aldous asked with a wry smile. Caquin's laugh was sharp as crystal shards. Perhaps 6. The evacuation alarm chose that moment to sound, filling the chamber with urgent harmonics. Aldous checked her chronometer. 3 hours had passed in what felt like minutes. You must go, Caquin observed. What about you, your people? We go where we choose, when we choose. The Glazok have no need for your transportation. Aldous hesitated at the chamber door. Will I see you again? She had already begun to fade, becoming translucent as her species' natural camouflage engaged. Perhaps, if your people prove as interesting as you suggest. Her voice echoed in her mind as he made her way to the evacuation bay. Remember, Aldous of the humans. In the galaxy's vast darkness, size matters far less than will. Your species understands this. Most do not. Most become prey. The transport sealed around him, carrying him toward the jump point and safety. Through the viewport, he watched Illworth Station shrink to a point of light among the stars. Somewhere in that structure, 8 beings the size of hamsters were preparing to return to their home among the void. The smallest apex predators in the galaxy had found something they hadn't expected to find. An equal. As the transport engaged its hyperdrive, Aldous couldn't shake the feeling that this first contact would be remembered, not as the day humanity discovered tiny aliens, but as the day the galaxy's deadliest hunters acknowledged that Earth's children might just be worthy of the hunt. In the cold reaches of space, respect was the rarest currency of all, and sometimes it came in very small packages. The stars blurred into lines of light, carrying news of humanity's first step into a much larger, much more dangerous, and infinitely more interesting universe. A universe where being an apex predator wasn't about size or strength or technology. It was about never, ever giving up. And in that regard, humans and Glazok were more alike than either species had dared to hope.